Good morning, everyone. I invite you to join in singing from wherever you are in our gray hymnal, hymn number 402, From You I Receive, in the gray hymnal number 402. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a liberal faith community that has been a beacon of peace, justice, and love for 160 years. My name is Stella Gorlin, and I serve as the Director of Spiritual Growth and Development. Thank you for joining us remotely or on demand this morning. If you're new to us, I warmly invite you to introduce yourself in the chat, where you will be lovingly greeted. And I also invite you to fill out a short survey located on our website at uua.org/newcomersurvey. This will help us help you make connections. Immediately after this abbreviated worship service, the congregational meeting will commence, and all are invited to attend as we continue to do the hard work of building a strong, sustainable community. I'd like to share a passage from Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. When the Queen of Hearts tells Alice that she is 101, 5 months and a day, Alice doesn't believe her. The Queen suggests she try again, to which Alice responds, "There is no use trying. One can't believe impossible things." "I dare say you haven't had much practice," said the Queen. "When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." In a world drowning in crisis, our vision for a peaceful, just future may seem out of reach, impossible. It would be natural to wonder, why even bother? But we continue to work for that future because we have committed ourselves to love. We practice believing in impossible things. We build that resilience muscle. We hold on to our ability to dream and hope. One challenge at a time, one step at a time, we gather the strength to believe that anything is possible as long as we face the future together. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship.
Like so many of our sibling congregations, each week we move more deeply into this time of worship by lighting a chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. As Stella lights our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite you to light a chalice or candle of your own and to keep your chalice lit throughout today's congregational meeting. Let us speak together our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Stella. From its very beginning, the flaming chalice was a symbol of service and of action, a symbol of the collective care UUs hold for each other and for our world. It takes all of us, each of us, to do the work of this congregation, work that would be impossible for any one of us alone, but not for every one of us together. Let us now speak the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
There was a time when the abolition of slavery seemed impossible, when women's suffrage was a pipe dream, when marriage equality faced insurmountable obstacles. It took the hard work and determination of generations of committed activists to make those dreams a reality. It also took vision, imagination, and a belief that the impossible is possible when we harness the great power of community. In our story for all ages this morning, we meet a brave little dog who inspires his friends to join him on a quest to overcome an impossible challenge. Hugo and the Impossible Thing, written by Renee Felice Smith and Chris Gabriel, illustrated by Sydney Hansen. At the edge of the forest stood the impossible thing. It was a jumbled mess of giant boulders, thorny mazes, raging rivers, and towering cliffs. The animals in the forest often wondered what was beyond the impossible thing, but no one knew because getting through it would be impossible. And because everyone said it was impossible, no animal ever tried. Until one day, a curious little dog named Hugo sat near the edge of the impossible thing and thought to himself, how do we know the impossible thing is impossible if no one's ever tried to get through it? On his way home, Hugo visited his friend Mr. Bear, who was lumbering around in his cave. Hey, Mr. Bear, said Hugo, do you think I could make it through the impossible thing? Of course not, Mr. Bear replied. If anyone could make it through the impossible thing, it would be someone big and strong like me. Have you ever tried? Asked Hugo. Well, no, admitted Mr. Bear, because the impossible thing is impossible. I see, said Hugo. Well, tomorrow I think I'm going to try. Hugo visited Little Fox, who was pondering in her den. Hey, Little Fox, said Hugo, do you think I could make it through the impossible thing? No way, scoffed Little Fox. If anyone could make it through the impossible thing, it would be someone quick and clever, like me. Have you ever tried? Asked Hugo. Not a chance, said Little Fox, because I'm clever enough to know impossible things are impossible. I see, said Hugo. Well, tomorrow I think I'm gonna try. Hugo visited Miss Otter, who was bathing in her pond. Hey, Miss Otter, said Hugo, do you think I could make it through the impossible thing? I'm sorry, but no, Miss Otter replied. If anyone could make it through the impossible thing, it would be a skilled swimmer like me. Have you ever tried? Asked Hugo. Of course not, said Miss Otter. It's just as they say, impossible. I see, said Hugo. Well, tomorrow I think I'm gonna try. Hugo visited old Mr. Goat, who was balancing on a branch way up in his tree. Hello up there, old Mr. Goat, said Hugo. Do you think I could make it through the impossible thing? Definitely not, old Mr. Goat grunted. If anyone could make it through the impossible thing, it would be an expert climber, like me. Have you ever tried? Asked Hugo. Why would I? Replied old Mr. Goat. I've lived in this forest longer than anyone, and the impossible thing has always been impossible. That's what I've heard, said Hugo. Well, tomorrow I think I'm gonna try. As curious little Hugo began to fall asleep that night, he thought to himself, everyone keeps telling me the impossible thing is impossible, but no one has ever tried to make it through the impossible thing. Even though I'm not as big and strong as Mr. Bear, or as quick and clever as Little Fox, and I can't swim like Miss Otter, or climb like old Mr. Goat, I still feel like I have to try. And so, Hugo drifted off to sleep and dreamt of the impossible thing and what might lie beyond it, and of being the first in the forest to get through it. The next morning, Hugo stopped by old Mr. Goat's tree, but he wasn't there. He passed Miss Otter's pond, but she wasn't there. Little Fox wasn't in her den. Mr. Bear wasn't in his cave. When Hugo finally arrived at the edge of the forest, he was surprised to find Mr. Bear, Little Fox, Miss Otter, and old Mr. Goat waiting for him. "In all the years I've lived in the forest," explained Mr. Bear, "everyone has always said getting through the impossible thing was impossible." "Yes," agreed Little Fox, "so no one ever thought to try." "Until you, Hugo," Miss Otter grinned. "So if you really want to try," grumbled old Mr. Goat. "We will help you," Mr. Bear assured him. Hugo looked to his friends and smiled. "Let's try to make it through the impossible thing together." And wouldn't you know it, with the help of big and strong Mr. Bear, Hugo and his friends moved the giant boulders. With the help of quick and clever Little Fox, Hugo and his friends found their way through the tricky, thorny maze. With the help of sweet Miss Otter, Hugo and his friends swam all the way across the raging rivers. And with the help of grumpy old Mr. Goat, Hugo and his friends climbed all the way up the towering cliffs. When old Mr. Goat nudged Hugo up to the very top of the tallest towering cliff, Hugo became the first in the forest ever to make it through the impossible thing. And there, just beyond the peak of the impossible thing, was the most perfect place in all the forest. The sun was warmer and the shade was cooler. The berries were sweeter and the grass was greener. Hugo, Mr. Bear, Little Fox, Miss Otter, and old Mr. Goat spent the rest of the day there and many days after. And from that day on, thanks to curious little Hugo and his most supportive friends, the impossible thing became known as the extremely difficult, but absolutely positively possible thing. The end.
Thank you, Stella. I love that story. Taking something that we view as impossible and shifting it to maybe just extremely difficult, but possible. I found myself in a conversation with a colleague this week that covered some challenging ground, but there was a portion of this conversation where we began talking about the nature of community and being in relationship with others, and it wound up being a kind of impossible things conversation. The crux of it was, in a culture in which transactionality defines the vast majority of our human interactions with others, is it possible instead to deliberately choose mutuality? As we began kind of exploring this, I could feel energetically like the insides, mine and this colleague's insides, just smiling at the mere possibility of that. What if we could choose mutuality over and over and over again in a culture and in a time where that is so undervalued, it is not the norm. Certainly in a values-based context, such as ours, being in religious community, such a thing should be possible, right? Maybe even more than just possible, maybe it's often doable, often achievable. What if it's most of the time doable or achievable? Or could we even dare to dream about that being true, about mutuality mattering and being centered all of the time? What would it mean for me to be invested in your thriving and well-being as much as you are invested in mine? For us to care about the thriving and well-being of community, let's say this community, as much as we care about our closest friends and family? What might it mean for mutual regard to matter so much that we stop wondering, what am I getting out of an interaction or relationship? Are there places here and now where we can drop transactionality, drop a transactional mindset altogether? What might it look like to make that impossible thing just a bit more possible? Now, today we have a congregational meeting. It's a time when we get together to discuss important business that's before our community. And we know that both today and in the weeks ahead, our congregation will be considering what it wants to say and do regarding the human rights situation in Palestine. Now, thinking about that specific substantive context that we're going to address, both in today's meeting and in the weeks ahead, I started thinking about, what does living into mutuality look like in the midst of an important and difficult conversation such as that? I know that in preparing for today's congregational meeting, our Board of Trustees has been aware that there have been differing understandings in our community around what set of rules might apply. Some in our congregation have been under the thought or idea that, a petition that was presented to the board in 2019 on this subject should mean that the process for adopting a resolution would be according to the rules that existed in 2019, meaning like what's a quorum, what is the voting threshold, that kind of thing. And yet, along the way, the congregation adopted a different bylaw in 2022 that involved a new criteria of quorum and voting threshold. And there are others in our community who are clear that that is the voting threshold and quorum that should apply. That means that there's a bit of confusion in our community. Not everyone is on the same page. Now, this is a specific. It need not be. On any number of issues, there is always the possibility in community that people are on different pages. This is where mutuality can look like slowing down. Slowing down for the sake of inclusivity, for the sake of creating time and space to share information, to share perspectives, and to try and get as many people in the community onto the same page as possible. It is a reflection of our mutual regard, our love and care for one another, that we at times slow down to do exactly that, to share information, resolve questions, and try and bring along as many people as possible. That is one of the ways mutuality and mutual regard is brought alive. Now, not everyone may be eventually satisfied with whatever results from that process of slowing down and clarifying and understanding together. Yet we will still have lived into the imperative to bring mutual regard alive as fully and well as we can. Now, following today's congregational meeting, sometime in the weeks ahead, we will have subsequently an opportunity to decide what the community wants to say and do about Palestinian human rights. There will be a vote on a substantive resolution. This is an opportunity to live into a different kind of mutuality. The first kind, about slowing down and including people, is about bringing folks along, bringing community members along to the best extent possible, living into mutual care and regard in that way. In this second instance, in which we are having an important conversation, this is mutual care and regard in the midst of difference, in the midst of a diversity of perspectives and opinions and needs. I can promise you that Unitarian Universalists are not all of one mind regarding what should or should not be happening in the Levant between Israel and Palestine. Given that, we can expect differences, and differences invite us into a particular kind of mutuality, a particular kind of mutual care and regard that could look like a few things. And let me offer a few possibilities. The first, now this is a reminder from a sermon I gave right as I came back off of my sabbatical, so from April of 2024, a reminder that holding clarity amongst ourselves, that there is a difference between criticizing the actions of a specific elected government and potentially criticizing an entire religion or an entire people. The two are not automatically equivalent and the same thing. And we can and should, as we routinely do here in the United States, criticize and speak out against elected governments, be they Democratic or Republican. That does not keep us from naming that elected governments can and should do better in striving to live into the public good. We can absolutely hold that as a piece of clarity in talking about the actions of a particular administration in the government of Israel. Second, we mind our tone, including our volume of voices, our word choices, all of that. We mind how we speak to one another. The manner in which we speak to one another can and should reflect mutual regard, our love and care to one another. Now, how do we do that? There's some personal slowing down can be good. Slowing down enough to ground ourselves in love for one another, because we do. We do care about one another. And so we slow down before we speak or interact, remind ourselves of the fact that we love community and we love the other people that we're in community with. And we select the words, we choose the tone, we choose the volume of voice that accurately reflects that love and care for others in community. We are not a debate society. We're trying to prove that there is a winner to the debate and a loser to the debate. That's not the type of relationship we have with one another. In the context of mutuality, we ground ourselves in our love and care for one another when we speak with one another. That love and care should be palpable when we're talking to one another. Third, I'd say we hold, as any discussion unfolds, the awareness, the internal awareness in ourselves individually, that disagreement amongst ourselves does not mean that the people involved do not have deep mutual care and regard for one another and for the issue at hand. A diversity of perspectives, a diversity of opinions or thoughts about how to proceed on something does not mean that others do not care about the issue as deeply as some others. They might. In fact, I'd say it's a healthy thing to assume that they probably do. They may just have a different set of background, experience, or values informing what they think the best way forward is. Finally, and most importantly, and this is general to any issue we ever discuss together in community, mutuality does not mean that one individual or a small group of individuals is getting their way on an issue. By its very definition, mutuality means that our field of concern is larger than oneself and one's own perspective and needs. It's not about proving or establishing that my perspective or need is right and the need or perspective of others is wrong or inadequate in some way. It's about ascertaining collectively, not individually, collectively, what we can hold to be true and how we can collectively honor that shared wisdom. Any of us who have been Unitarian Universalists for any significant length of time can share that there have been many occasions over those years or decades of being a UU that we have not gotten our particular individual way on an issue that community is deciding. It's common, it's routine, if you stay in our movement for some length of time, to have this experience. And the first time you have it, it's unsettling. And it does bring up some questions of, well, do I belong? And is this still my spiritual home? The majority of the communities decided something different from what I personally feel. It comes up, most especially the first time that happens. But then what happens is, if you can find your way to remember all the things that you have loved and cared about in community, that none of those things have really gone away or changed because of one specific decision or one specific vote, that's a good beginning. That's a good way to begin working with some of that disappointment. Side by side, it's important for those who feel they've gotten most of their way on a decision to remember that there are others who perhaps got less of their way on a decision, and to show up in a good, caring way. We don't simply stop the conversation after a decision or vote has been taken. More conversation and interaction is needed to ensure that we are not leaving people behind, that we're reaching out to let them know that they still matter to us, they still belong, they are still included in community, even if what they needed, they got less of as a decision was made. It is exceptionally important that we live into mutuality in that way on the other side of a decision. It's in fact a shared responsibility to live into mutuality in that way. Like the animals in our time for all ages, I know that I yearn for making something that can feel impossible possible. Our culture pushes us into subconsciously accepting transactionality as not just the primary, but the only possible mode of human interaction that we could ever have. And yet I know, and we know, because I learned this especially well here in our community, that something richer and deeper, something more meaningful is possible, and that richer, more meaningful thing is living into the spirit, into the ethos of mutuality. Won't you join me, not just today as we move into a congregational meeting, but in the weeks, months, and years ahead? Won't you join me in trying to bring that alive as fully, as deeply, and as well as we can?
Across the physical distance that separates us today, let us join our voices as one in singing from the gray hymnal number 323, Break Not the Circle, in the gray hymnal number 323. Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and
Beloveds, as we close this time out, let us move into the time of our business making and conversation about how we're in community together, our congregational meeting, holding that imperative to break not this circle, but to hold it tenderly, caringly, and well. For together we build the beloved community that each of us needs, that our wider world needs. May we go move into that time with love in our hearts. Amen.